Hello, malt mates. Welcome to the Whisky Bothy, where you'll find whisky. You'll also find reviews, and you'll find me, because someone's got to present the reviews. So here I am. I'm Ralphie. You're welcome, malt mates. Let's get stuck in. This is review number 1075. No, it's not. That was my last review. This is review number 1076. I knew I'd get there eventually. And this is what I'm reviewing. It's a little mini series of 2 reviews centring around Edredour Distillery, which is right in the middle of the Highlands, right, in a place called Pitlochry. It's a converted farm, so it's a traditional farm distillery. It's a small production, and it has a bit of a cult following because there's not a lot of it out there. But what is out there is generally, even in its most eccentric forms, and they can get quite eccentric, believe me, it is always interesting. This is Ballachan, which is such a small volume brand that there's a lot of whisky fans are not actually aware of it. But I'll mention this, and I'm reviewing this for a specific reason, is that if there's a downturn in global whisky demand, it means that there's more whisky to go round those who are still buying. So that's my theory in this. I'm going to pour a glass. Recently, Edredour, because Ballachan is peated Edredour, have been putting in very clear print on the back of the label a bottling code and a date of bottling. I cannot praise them highly enough for this. It's not just marginally useful, it's very, very useful information being provided for the whisky enthusiast to know the provenance of their whisky. Why does a bottling time, why does a batch number even matter? And when you do see them, they tend to be in lots of long numbers actually printed onto the glass to render them virtually invisible, simply because the bottler wants you to not notice them. But here they are in black and white, clearly legible on a nice traditional label that can be clearly seen even without a steampunk magnifying glass. So I'm going to give my best shot now. Okay, give me a second. Righto. Bottled on the 24th of April 2024. So you're talking virtually a year ago this was bottled. And this is batch number L24/88. And there you go. It's peated. It's heavily peated. If you look at the front of the label, you will see that it says natural colour, unchill filtered, age statement 10 years old, and it's been bottled at 46%. Now we're really getting somewhere. Now, even before I nose and taste this whisky, I've got your interest, because you know these are the key category signs for a better delivered single malt, whatever its quality. So let's go for it. The first nose I'm going to take is without rolling the spirit round the glass. So I'm just going to lift the glass straight up and nose it. And in doing that, I'm getting a very, very shorthand and superficial assessment through the nose, through the olfactory nervous system, of what's actually coming out of this glass. It's not until I roll it around the inside of the glass that I'm suddenly going to get so much more due to the surface area of wet alcohol, releasing the odours from the alcohol, which is now animated, active, and moving slightly in the glass. Slightly sawdust and peat and not a lot else. Maybe slightly ginger, you could put that in there. But here's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to take the glass and just gently roll it towards you. Okay, see that? Gently rolling it towards you, so that there literally is a complete surface area coat line inside that glass. I'll take it back to my nose now. So much more. Now we're getting the peatiness, that big phenolic blast, and it's as good as anything from Islay, I assure you of that. Fruity, dried fruit, cranberry, ginger, absolutely, a touch of cola in there, but of course overriding it all is this peatiness, which isn't typical of Islay peat, right? This is more an industrial peatiness. And one reason for that is because the nature of Edradour, without being unpeated, coming from small stills with smaller reflux and heavier congeners and components coming over the line arm of the still into the cooling, the cooling apparatus. I forget exactly what it is at the moment. I should know that, but hey, I'm here to assess the whiskey. I'll know that next time if I remember. Life is cruel. Anyway, and it's minty. It's distinctively minty. There's quite a distinct overripe apricot note in there as well. This is where the phenolics are being boosted by the very real substance and character of Edradour single malt, which I gave full opinion on in the last review 1074. So let's have a taste of it now. Chimney soot, sharp, slightly chilly, nippy, fusile, mineral oil, linseed oil, yeasty, butyric, which means overripe dairy. It is distinctly butyric. First impressions are that this is a hot little monster. If you get it at cask strength, it'll be even more so. However, it's when you add the water, and I still get messages from people, even my Patreon subscribers will say, Ralphie, we don't mind you adding water, but you seem to be adding too much water. It's all down to one's personal palate. When I add the amount of water that I do, it gives me access to the complexity because I am reducing the chemical nip of the ethanol itself. I'm minimising that. But in the same time, the flavours that are locked up physically in the alcohol, as the alcohol weakens physically due to the dilution with water, its solvency is reduced. As a result of which the chemicals, the natural chemicals from the grain, from the cask, from the environment in which the cask was matured, they're all starting to come off now more actively because they're not locked up anymore, and they're just coming out to meet my nose. And now, with 1 teaspoonful of water, just 5 millilitres. So I've brought this down to how much? 43%, 42% alcohol, maybe 40% alcohol. I don't have a spectrometer on me at the moment, so I can't tell you exactly what. But it's so much calmer, so much more steady, and so much more methodical in delivering the nose. What you get in the nose is also similar to what you'll start experiencing on the palate in terms of the pace of delivery. Let's go back to the nose. I've given it a couple of minutes. I'm not shaking the glass. I don't do that. I'm just holding by the stem, which is the way thing to do. Don't overheat too soon. Nose in. It's getting creamy now. There's a little bit of cream soda, a little bit more vanilla going on here. In terms, if you look at this cask, that's natural colour. So it's suggesting ex-sherry cask. That's what it's suggesting. Let me see, I'm going to have a wee quick look here. See if they want to give us a bit more information. Apart from blah blah, Edradour, truly handcrafted, heavily peated distillation. Released the first 2003 and released the first 10-year-old version in 2014. So this brand hasn't been on the go for very long. Do they say anything about the casks? Yeah, they do. This has been bought predominantly from ex-bourbon casks with a generous top dressing of ex-Oloroso casks. Now, what do they mean by a generous top dressing? Basically, it's whatever they want it to mean. It tells you nothing about the time of the secondary maturation. So it's primarily started off in bourbon casks, which explains the vanilla notes coming through, and then it's been finished in ex-sherry casks. I don't even like to say ex-sherry casks. I just like to say new sherry casks, because ex suggested that the sherry in the casks previously was for drinking, which most of the time these days is not the case unless it's Amontillado or Fino or Palo Cortado. I must admit, of all the sherries, Palo Cortado's the one that's floating my boat at the moment. Anyway, back to the whiskey. I just like that nuttiness. Fino can be too hit or miss. Excuse me, I've got a runny nose. I'm thinking of getting a bit... I think I'm now getting a bit of whiskey up my nose, actually, in the enthusiasm. So let's just batten this down. Taste with water. Delightful, aromatic, almost perfumed. Sweet and sour arrival. It's all about the bourbon vanilla and the sherry raisin initially. So these have been new casks, probably with a little bit of previous content. Then the fusile of the phenolics, of the peatiness, starts to kick in the development. It's quite raw, it's a little bit rough, it's totally delicious, very satisfying, and the finish, gingery, bit of tannins, a little bit of spice, and a little bit of umami. So when I talk about the dirty malt, the dirty flavoured umami savouriness of Edradour, we're also getting the same thing in here, but with a generous overcoat of peat. The peatiness I mentioned slightly, alluded to earlier, is not Islay peat. It's not that style of peat. This is more twiggy, earthy, bonfirey, chimney soot, steam locomotive type, Harry Potter train type, right? That kind of smoke. So there's that little bit of mineral smoke to it that you would get from burning coal. And this can be easily explained, because if you've got distilleries that are actually kilning their own barley, there's absolutely no reason why they can't combine coal with the peat, or even coke with the peat. They can put wood in with the peat. In fact, often these peat fires include Springbank is a very good example. You clearly see it demonstrated there. They start off with a chopped up wood pallet. That's how they get the fire going, to generate the smoke without the flames coming from the peat cores, the sausages, yeah, you could call them that have been harvested. The thing about when you see peat and it's in round circles, like it's come out a pipe, that's ethical harvesting of peat, because it's taking the peat that's underneath the soil whilst retaining the integrity and the living structure of the green surface of living peat bogs. And therefore, the harvesting of peat, if it's done responsibly, does not harm the natural environment in any way at all. It doesn't. In fact, it encourages human observation and benevolence to actually look after these environments and make sure people don't trundle up in trucks and try and dump road fill or throw discarded fridges and old tyres off the side of the road into the peat bogs. Just saying. I've left this a couple of minutes now. I'm going to come back to it again. The nose has settled down further. There's a slight hint of Riesling, German white wine, the aromatic stuff, nice stuff that you can get at a reasonable price in the supermarket. And bitter lime. Bitter lime in there too. Lime rind. So a little bit of that pith note that you get from citrus fruit. It's a complex one, very engaging. And I'd just like to add, before I forget, when I last poured a glass of this, I had it sitting by the fireside for over an hour. And when I came back to finish off the glass, it had become softer, sweeter, and, in a single word, languid. It had become much more settled. Everything had just modified, tamed down, and it gave the most beautiful, languid, single malt, heavily peated experience. It was absolutely delightful. This, malt mates, is very good whisky. It really is. It's heading that way already. Beautiful sweet sour with just enough fizz from the bitterness. Cereal grain bitterness in there as well. That butyric, that slightly sour cream note, still carrying on through the signature. Not a whisky for beginners, it's a whisky for us. Now, I gave 84 out of 100 to the 10-year-old Edradour, this one here, in my last review, and I said I'd have given it 85 if it hadn't been bottled at 43% and chill filtered. Well, this has been bottled at 46% and it's not chill filtered, so there we go, 85 result. Join me shortly for my next review, where I'm going to bring out this older bottle. Let's keep the glasses separate. This older bottle, which I reviewed back in 2000 and what was it? Yeah, 2017. I reviewed this almost 8 years ago. I still have the bottle. I haven't really touched it since. So there's a little bit of oxidization, but not much. So I'm literally going to pour a glass of this and just compare them side by side. It should be interesting.